As a STEM for Good facilitator, you have access to several resources to help you be successful during your experience. One of those resources is the slide deck, which we'll talk about in a moment, and the other is your facilitator's guide. There's also a student journal. These three resources communicate with each other to make sure that everyone is on the same page during the session. If we look at the facilitator's guide, you'll notice that we have an activities map or a table of contents explaining what's happening in each section of the facilitator's guide. There's a quick activity map or 4-week breakdown of what's going to be covered over the course of the program. There's also a materials chart that will show you which supplies you need to pull out for each week, both from the physical materials as well as the print materials at the bottom. That way you can be intentional during setup. And each week begins with an overview page that looks like this, that will tell you what to expect during the session and how to best prepare for it. As you dive into the session, you'll notice a few things. One is that at the top, it'll tell you which week you're on, which section you are facilitating, and approximately how long that full section should take. You'll also see that there are flow and facilitators notes, or things to just know or do, on the left, and then there's a script on the right. Now, I should say that the script is there as a resource, not as a requirement. So if you don't want to use the script and you would rather just navigate with the slide deck, completely fine. The script is just there as an additional resource if you're someone that prefers to be over-prepared for a session. Now, I said earlier that these resources communicate with each other. And what I mean by that is that you'll notice here it says you're on slide 1. Here's what you'll be doing, which is sharing insight about your job and experience, just who you are. And here's a script on what you can say. So you'll notice over here that there is a slide number on the slide deck. So when you're on that slide, that's what you're supposed to say or do. As we click through, you'll see slide 2. Okay, you're going to prompt students to write their names on their name tags and their Explorer guides or their student journals. So here's slide 2, and it has that prompt here as well. Continuing to click through, every session will begin with an agenda to give everyone a lay of the land, a sense of what's going to be covered. One quick note from a facilitation perspective is that if there are words on a slide, the students can read them. So what I mean by that is if you need a little breather or you've been talking for a while and you need a sip of water, I would recommend that you say, all right, friends, we're going to talk about what we're going to review today. So can I get a volunteer to read this agenda aloud for me? That way, while the student is reading, you get to take a sip of water, take a breather, and that's true across all of the slides. If there are words on a slide, the students can read them, and there's a lot of research that shows that it's really beneficial for students to have a chance to learn from each other. So use that as a resource. So clicking through here, something else I want to note is that it says here on slide 4 that there's a timer. So here on slide 4, you'll notice that there is a timer. So the pacing is such that it is designed to be built into the slides. That way you don't need to keep an eye on your phone or on the clock in the room. It's all built out very intentionally. And then also that way the students know how much time they have remaining for different activities. Continuing to click through here in the facilitator's guide and the slide deck, here on slide 6, it says that there's a 3-minute timer and also that the students need to be on a certain page. So if I go to slide 6, right here is the timer, and then there's also a little icon here that will tell the students which page they need to be on in their Explorer guide, and it has a picture of what their Explorer guide looks like to trigger that action. So that's what is meant by the 3 resources talk to each other. So here, the students are going to be on page 1, and they're going to be creating classroom builders codes, or kind of like a classroom constitution, things that everyone needs to be responsible for as we're all coming together to learn and experience together. So if I look at their Explorer guide and go to page 1, up here as well, they'll be jotting down those things under their builders codes section. And so these things could be, everyone gets a turn. We're kind and respectful to each other. And so that way, if in later sessions you notice that a group isn't allowing everyone to get a turn, you have some leverage to say, hey, remember those builders codes that we put together where everyone gets a turn and we're being kind and respectful? Let's make sure we're doing those things. So looking back at the facilitator's guide, you'll notice that there is also a materials manager, which is on slide 7. So again, this program could have up to 25 students in one session. That's a lot of kiddos. And so we have each group select a materials manager, which is one student who will come up to the supply table to get the materials for their group. They will have a lanyard that they will wear. That way you can very easily tell who is meant to be at the supply table. That way you don't have 25 kids coming to the supply table at once and you just have 6 instead. So I would love to take a moment just to go through the rest of week 1 so you can kind of learn a little bit about what to expect. So we've done a little bit of the upfront work in terms of the students you've introduced yourself. The students have put their names on their name tags in their Explorer guides. They'll review the agenda of what's going to be covered during that session. Then they'll have a quick icebreaker called the name game, where you'll have students put in a circle. You can do small groups. I would recommend small groups of about 5 or 6 students. And one at a time, each student will step into the middle of the circle. They'll say, "Hi, my name is Mal, and I like to play softball." Then they'll do a little move. Everyone else in the circle will say, "Hi, Mal, you like softball," and they'll repeat whatever physical move I make. This is just something fun, get the kids up and moving, get to know each other. Sometimes the students in the room might not know each other already, so this gives them a chance to know each other and also gives a chance for you to get to know the students a little bit better too. They'll have a quick debrief about that activity, and then they will create their builder's code. After that, they will select their materials manager, and then the session really gets started. So that's all the upfront. From here, they'll talk about what makes up your brain and why your brain is really important. From there, they'll learn about the parts of the brain. So they'll learn about the cerebrum, the cerebellum, and they'll do a little activity where they need to tap the top of their head and rub their stomach at the same time, and learn about how our brain controls that action. And then they'll learn about the brainstem and learn that it is something that helps us keep the automaticity going in our bodies, like our breathing, our heartbeat, our blinking, the things that our bodies need to survive that we don't necessarily think about. Starting on slide 12, they will start a coloring activity. So they will have either as a separate handout or in the back of their Explorer guide, a coloring activity where they will color in the brainstem and the cerebellum. That way they're kind of learning where the parts of the brain are as they're learning about their functions. After that, they'll have a brainstorm about what keeps our brains healthy and why it's important. There'll be some tips and tricks on a slide, and again, you can have the students read these. So you can say, "Hey, can I get a volunteer to read the first tip and trick on a healthy brain?" And then you choose someone else to read the next one. So one student can read this one, then they can choose another student to read the next one. So you'll notice there are a few here, and one that we call out is about paying attention to your use of screen time. So let's talk about screen time. So we have kids kind of think about, what does screen time even mean? How much time do you think you spend on screens each day? And how does that make you feel? After that, they'll watch a quick but amusing video about screen time that's about 3.5 minutes long. And then there's a quick debrief on screen time. So we like to always have some videos towards the front. That way you get a moment to orient yourself. You get to take a little bit of break. And then the students are also learning content in a different modality. After the debrief, they will dive into putting some thoughts on paper. So they'll go into their Explorer guide, again on page 1. So here's what that looks like. And they'll just jot down 3 thoughts on what they can do to keep their brains happy and healthy. Next, they will have a movement game. So they've sat and they've watched video, they've talked through content. So let's get them up and moving. So they will do an activity called the human knot, where they will need to tangle themselves up and figure out a way to communicate in order to untangle themselves in their groups. And again, some students might not be comfortable holding hands, and that's okay. They can either hold the rulers that are in the supply kit, or they may elect to sit this one out, and that's completely fine. So they'll do the human knot. Once the human knot is complete, they will learn about a job that's related to brain health. In this case, a pediatric neurologist. So they will watch a video and hear from a pediatric neurologist that works at Seattle Children's about what their job is and why they might need to see a pediatric neurologist someday. After that, they will jot down a few thoughts in their Explorer guide about what they learned from the video. And finally, they will have a little brain day journal that is a take-home handout. This is not something you need to cover much with them, but this is just something that they'll take home with them to get them thinking about how they're using their brain throughout the day, and how that makes them feel, kind of what they're feeling throughout the day, just as a way to have them thinking about the current state of their brain health. And then from there, that is it. That's the first session. From there, the session wraps. You will lead cleanup. And so the school host will also help make sure that the students are supporting cleanup, but recycling anything that can be recycled, tossing any trash, and then packing up the materials into the supply box that was originally at the school. They will turn in their Explorer guides. They will not take them home until the last week. They will get their brain day journal sheet to take home, and then they will return to their seats and await dismissal from the school host. So that is in its entirety the first session of Brain Builders for STEM for Good Winter 2026.